What is the dark web? You've likely heard stories of the dark web on the news or in conversation at some point. To understand the dark web, we need to know the three parts of the internet. It's easiest to think of them as an iceberg. As we can see, only a small percentage of the iceberg is above the water and visible from the surface. This is similar to the internet. We call this part of the internet the surface web. The surface web is all websites that are indexed and searchable from search engines such as Google or Bing. Examples of surface websites are ones you use every day, such as news websites, shopping websites, and video hosting sites such as YouTube. Essentially, if you can find it with a Google search, it's part of the surface web. Surprisingly, the surface web only makes up around 5 to 10% of the internet. This takes us on to the largest part of the internet, known as the deep web. News outlets and people without technical knowledge will often describe the deep web and the dark web as the same thing, but this is not the case. The deep web is mostly used for completely legal activity. The deep web is simply information that is not indexed by search engines and therefore can't be found by them. This can be things like email mailboxes, confidential databases, intranets used to communicate internally by companies, schools, and governments, just to name a few. You can still access these over the internet in most cases, but you'll need the specific URL and login credentials. You can't just find these pages with a Google search as they aren't indexed. Incredibly, the deep web makes up around 90% of the internet. That brings us on to the final part of the internet, the dark web. This part is also not indexed or findable through regular search engines. What separates the dark and deep web is the dark web is intentionally hidden and often but not always used for crime. Another difference is you need a special browser to access it. The most commonly used is called Tor and stands for the Onion Router. Tor can be downloaded on most devices and enables users of the dark web to be anonymous by routing traffic through Tor relays to hide your IP address. However, it's still recommended to use a VPN as well. Tor allows users to browse to websites in the .onion domain. In the surface web, we use .com or .org, etc. But most dark websites will use .onion at the end of the URL, which is accessible through the Tor browser and not a regular browser like Chrome. As we've mentioned, you need to have a specific URL ending in .onion for the site you want to access with your Tor browser on the dark web. However, there are a few indexing sites, such as the hidden Wiki, that provide a list of commonly visited dark websites. The URL to the hidden Wiki does change, but can be found with a quick Google search. It will need to be pasted into the Tor browser to get to the site though. So what is the dark web used for? The dark web's most common uses include evading government censorship if your government limits communication or internet access in your country. Whistleblowers use the dark web to avoid detection when leaking information. However, it is most well known for being used for marketplaces for things such as drugs, weapons, personal information, bank details, and even assassins for hire, just to name a few. They use the dark web because it gives them the ability to be anonymous, and payment is made using cryptocurrency to further avoid detection. One of the most infamous cases of dark web marketplaces was the Silk Road website, which was shut down in 2013. However, many copycats have existed since. The website was mainly used for selling drugs all across the internet and was turning over tens of millions of dollars annually. I'll leave a link to some further information about the Silk Road case if you want to know more. Here is a few screenshots from websites around the dark web so you can see what they look like. I do not recommend visiting the dark web unless you have the correct security measures in place to protect yourself. However, I'll leave a link to the Tor browser download in the description if you do decide you'd like to visit it. Thanks for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing if you found this video useful.